back the old beats, people are going to be pissed. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Deeper Dive Showdown Edition. Fantastic game on tap today. Dallas Cowboys at the New York Giants. 1 point spread, super low total. I think it's hovering around 38.5, 39 right now, but that's okay because we're here to talk about it. Big prize pools across the board. I'm Dave Lockran at Lafayette_D on the Twitters, LOUGHY_D. Joined by Neil Orfield at Player QDFS, the Showdown Shaman, some people call him. What's going on, dude?
That's a new one. I had not heard that one, but
just thought of it right now.
I'll go with it. Showdown Shaman. So good at alliteration, Laffy.
Little alliteration. Not bad, though. I like that. Showdown Shaman. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to run.
I think it's a really good one. I say all the time that I don't really care about how good the actual football game is, as long because I got money on it. So it doesn't need to be a great game. I don't care. And that game last night just flipped that on. I hated that game so much. Even with the amount of money I had, I was like, this is the worst football game I have ever seen. There's nothing enjoyable. I also was not winning any money. So I guess it does come down to how I'm doing betting wise too. But did you watch that game? That was just unenjoyable for me.
I didn't because I was at the Eagles game in DC. We took a bus, started drinking approximately 8 a.m. So when I got home, I was so tired. And I look at it, Neil, honestly, I go Broncos. Now I haven't missed a second of a primetime game this year, but I'm going straight to sleep.
Okay. Yeah. I get it. It was a good one to skip. You made the right decision.
Yeah, for sure. And if you saw any of the show this morning, my power went out at 3 a.m. and I thought someone was trying to get into my house, but it turns out that oddly enough, I told you I was about to arm up.
I also do not have the electric toothbrush,
drill through my walls. My wife goes, "What is that? Get up. What is that?" So I run into the hallway. I look in. Somehow the power outage prompted, I don't know if Jordan heard this story, but he's losing it over. Somehow the power outage prompted my electric toothbrush to turn on, fall off the stand, and start rattling all over the fucking counter.
Is it plugged in? Is an electric toothbrush
plug it into a base and it charges in the base?
Okay, so it turned
on
the electricity. Okay,
flopped off, had legs of its own, and so it was charged because there's a battery. Sounded like someone was trying to get into my house. It was horrifying.
That sounds terrifying. I would not.
Very loud when they're rattling around at 3 a.m. in the morning.
I'm like AB. I do not have an electric toothbrush. I think I did at one point in my life, but it was battery operated maybe, and just I ran out of batteries and stopped using it. And so I just have the old fashioned regular toothbrush.
Yeah, I told AB you have to, if you're not using an electric toothbrush.
I think you convinced me. Yeah, I think I'm going to try it.
Yeah, if it's eluded you thus far, it'll change your life. I'm telling you, it's good stuff. All right, I know Jordan uses an electric toothbrush. Yeah, Jordan has all the fancy
of course he
goodies.
Does. Yeah, he's a fancy man.
He is a fancy man. Anyway, Jordan Klein producing the show, as always, wonderful human behind the controls. Neil Orfield with me, and we're happy to have you guys with us as always. Listen, last night game, for all intents, from what I heard, was not good. The score would suggest the same.
Yeah.
Maybe this game isn't good, but like you said, if you've got a sweat going, if you're sweating DFS, if you're sweating bets, it doesn't matter. And DraftKings would probably agree with that, given that, the prize pool is what, $1 million to first tonight?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it should be more fun. As long as we've got some people who are in contention, it'll make it an enjoyable game, despite the low total.
All right. Well, let's do it. Let's make this happen. We got Cowboys, Giants. I will ask you first, though, because this is your expertise, your forte, the shaman here. Is there anything about this game specifically from a showdown standpoint that makes it different than other games? Maybe the fact that the quarterbacks are very cheap. Anything stand out? Even in New York, not a lot of quality wide receivers outside of it, maybe Sterling Shepard. Anything different about this slate that makes you approach it differently, or do we just attack it the same way we always would?
Yeah, so it's different from some games in that I think that there's a little bit more blurred lines. Of course, I thought it's similar to me in some ways to the Pittsburgh-Cleveland game in that I think there's a little bit blurred lines between the high-end options at wide receiver in particular and the cheaper guys. And then, of course, in that Pittsburgh Cleveland game, it was all of the high end options, the expensive guys who ended up scoring touchdowns, and the winning lineup used 49,700 salary. So it didn't work out in that game. But I think that this is another game where I would be willing to leave maybe a little bit more salary on the table than usual, just because even the most expensive player on the slate is 11,800 in Saquon Barkley. That's not especially, I mean, he's fairly expensive, I guess. That is kind of expensive, but a lot of these guys are not that expensive. You got Richie James at 5,400, Noah Brown at 6,800. A lot of the higher end options are not particularly expensive. And then we've got some interesting cheaper guys in like Jalen Tolbert. We don't really know what his role is going to be at 1,000. And we've got the Cowboys tight ends now at 200 are kind of interesting. So I think this is a game that we could see, a lot of money left on the table winning this slate. And then also like the defenses, the kickers in a low total game are a little bit more interesting. So a lot of kind of cheaper options on this slate means that you could leave a little bit more salary on the table to get a little bit more unique.
All right. Hey, hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Greatly appreciate. Did I ask? I think I said I'm glad to have everyone here. I don't know if I asked for likes yet, but if not, atone for your sins. You know the drill around here. Appease the YouTube overlords.
Man, do you see the super chat? Day. Do you see the super chat?
Which that's awesome.
Like who did this? Who did this? Electronic toothbrush is the username.
I mean, amazing that someone just did that.
I know.
Super chatted that. Look,
but I feel like the comment should have been more threatening. Like it sounded like this toothbrush was like attacking your counter, not just buzzing.
Yeah. Here's the thing. And yes, it was people saying it wasn't turned off. It was turned off. It malfunctioned because of the power outage. Take an electric toothbrush. There's two modes, like the slower mode than the high mode. Put it on high mode and throw that on your counter laying down. That thing is loud. That's all I'm saying. Especially at 3 a.m., Neil. 3 a.m., everything's louder, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Silent house. Yeah, that would be a little bit.
All right. Thanks for the super chat. Yeah, quiet. Well, yeah, because we sleep with fans. I can't sleep in silence. I hate it. I got the ceiling fan on, and then I have a fan, one of those oscillating fans on the floor. Just need some sound. So it's just dead quiet. It's horrible. Sam Pierce with a super chat. DK roster construction, 20 entry, 15,000 total spots. How many different captains do you use for 20 lineups? That's a good question, Neil. So do you have any like limits, or do you just let it rip?
So it's really a matter of personal preference and risk tolerance to some extent. So I don't think that there is a right or wrong answer in terms of making lineups that are plus EV. That will win over time. It's just a matter of your own personal preference and risk tolerance. For me, typically in a 20 entry, I would probably do, 4 or 5 different captains split up across my lineups, but that's just my personal preference. It comes down to, how much you want to risk. If you have, the same player a captain in all of your lineups, then that player does well. Obviously, it's going to make all of your lineups give you a little boost. But if that player fails, you're probably not cashing any of those lineups. So it's really just risk tolerance and personal preference. But yeah, like I said, usually for me in 20 entries, probably be 4 or 5 captains that I use.
Okay. Hopefully that helps. And Nicholas R., welcome to Team Stochastic, man. That badge looks good on you, bro. Jordan, I saw your comment. That was hilarious. I just saw that was really good. That was really good.
I missed
All
it.
right. What's that? He said,
I'll find it.
He said, I just been picturing Laffy turning the corner into the bathroom with an AR-15 and there's a toothbrush.
Yeah.
All
like
right.
a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So Neil, let's make it happen. We got Live Before Lock coming up right after this as well. Matt Savoca, Matt Kajeski. So stick around for those guys. They'll take you all the way up to kickoff for this bond burner. You have, oh, by the way, FedEx Field is a dump. Total dump. I don't know if you've been there.
I haven't.
Oh,
is that where this game is? FedEx Field? Yeah.
No, that's where I was yesterday.
Oh, the Commanders Field.
Yeah, it just made me think about it.
Okay.
Total dump. All right. Let's get into the Dallas side of this one. I actually want to start in the backfield because, and I'm sure you've looked at the same stuff I have. Really interesting to see that Pollard last week only ran 13 routes, but was targeted on 7 of them, right? It played far fewer snaps than Zeke. I think it was 24 to Zeke's 41, still had 9 carries, 16 total looks. Zeke has run far more routes than Pollard this year in 2 games. He has 2 receptions for -7 yards. And on the ground, he was efficient in week 1, but they got knocked around. So they had to abandon the run. And then last week, I think 3.5 yards per attempt. I really think right now McCarthy is probably hearing it from Jerry Jones. You know, we paid this guy a ton of money. You're going to keep running. And Jerry said that before the season started. Like, Zeke's the guy. He's on a fat contract in so many words. Pollard's the better running back.
I know.
The more elusive, the more efficient player.
Yeah, he has said we go as Zeke goes. Like the Cowboys go as Ezekiel Elliott goes. And it's like, that doesn't have to be the case though. You could go as a better player goes. But no, I don't think that Zeke is a bad running back, to be clear. Actually, I think that Zeke is fairly talented, but I think I also agree that Tony Pollard is probably the more talented of the two. But ultimately it comes down to opportunity. Like you said, so far this year, Zeke has played on 81 snaps to Pollard's 62. There was some buzz this offseason that Tony Pollard was going to play some in the slot. Got me super excited. I played him a little bit more in best ball as a result. We haven't really seen that. As you said, Zeke has run, I think, more routes than Pollard. I have this open somewhere. Got to find the Cowboys here, but he has not been running as many routes as I would have hoped. So that's kind of disappointing. You know, I end up, I can't really, I never know what to make of the Cowboys. It kind of comes down for me always to ownership. And in this case, we've got Zeke at 8.1% in the captain spot, Pollard at 5.5% in the captain spot. Makes me like Pollard a little bit better there. And then in the utility spot, we've got Zeke owned at 33%, Pollard at 27%. Honestly, that seems about right. We actually have Zeke as having positive leverage at those numbers and Pollard being a little bit over owned. So, you know, I guess that makes sense because Zeke has had more opportunities than Pollard. He'll probably continue to have more opportunities than Pollard. I don't really know exactly how I'm going to break it down. My guess is I'm going to be close to the field on these guys. I'd be lying if I said I have a good read because they alternate kind of. You can't count on one of them to always be entirely the lead back or have the spike game. Pollard has his spike games even in that backup role. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to be fairly close to the field. Neither of them, my favorite running back. I'll probably play some lineups with each of them at captain. I think are kind of interesting just because, partially because they're a little bit cheaper than the highest salary guys. You get a little bit of a price discount. You also don't need the quarterback to be feeding them the ball. So it's easier for them to be captain without the quarterback and with lineups that leave a little bit of salary on the table. So ultimately, I'm going to be playing both. My guess would be I'll be close to the field on both, which is in the 30 percentile range.
One thing I think too, Neil, that's going to be really interesting to see how it shakes out. Maybe tonight, maybe next week. I don't know. It depends when they get to the goal line. But of the one single goal line carry between the two running backs this year, it's Tony Pollard. Last year, Zeke had 14 goal line carries. Pollard had 1. Mm-hmm. Zeke had 17 carries inside the 10. Pollard had 2. That is one thing where I just assume this year, once they actually, the opportunities start to become a little bit more, abundant, if they do, that Zeke remains the goal line back. I mean, that's my assumption. If that ends up not being the case and they're rotated in and out like a Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams type situation, Pollard to me becomes a whole lot more appealing. And I don't think we really know yet.
Yeah, I'm with you. Gordon Powell asks, at captain, will you be over or under on 1? I could see myself being, honestly, I don't know. I want to answer that. I was going to answer that I want to be over the field on Pollard at 5.5%. They both have negative leverage currently in our top showdown plays tool. I still think that there's a good chance that I get to the field or maybe even above the field on both, because even if they are a little bit over owned relative to most lineups, I think in lineups the way that I make them, where you leave salary on the table, you need to have guys who have higher upside and save a little bit of salary. So I think they make kind of some sense in lineups where you are saving some salary. So I could see myself going above the field on them. It's just really hard to determine before I actually make my lineups, because I spread out a good amount at captain as well.
All right. Well, now we've got the pass catchers here. We'll get into Cooper Rush. We can talk defense. Kickers might be pretty solid today, so we'll definitely get into that. And the defense is in a game that has a total that's fallen all the way to 38.5 now. But Dalton Schultz not expected to play. Now, I anticipated him being out because Jerry Jones said earlier in the week that he probably misses a week. I thought Gallup was going to play, but now he's trending towards being inactive as well. So that means that CeeDee Lamb, once again, the clear top option of this team, clear top option, had a well over a 30% target share last week. I think it was 36%, 35%. But aside from that, where do we go, Neil, with the Noah Browns and all these other secondary options?
I mean, I feel like Noah Brown is also pretty clearly the number 2. So I think we've got a pretty clear pecking order here, with CeeDee Lamb being the number 1, 78 routes run through 2 games and 20 targets. Noah Brown, 71 routes run with 14 targets. They waived Dennis Houston, so he is no longer a concern.
Terry just said they're both confirmed out, by the way. It just came out. So I didn't want to interrupt, but they're both confirmed out now.
Okay. Yeah, I've been working under the assumption that they're both out, but it's still good to get that confirmation. So I think CeeDee Lamb is the pretty clear number 1. I think in terms of opportunity, it's probably Noah Brown number 2. And then behind him, as I was saying, Dennis Houston was waived. So I don't know if that means, I think the number 3, it's a question. Is it going to be Simi Fehoko, or is it going to be Jalen Tolbert? What's the split going to be there? I don't think it's really clear. I'm going to be playing both of them. It's kind of an ownership game for me. I'm going to be taking shots on both Simi Fehoko and Jalen Tolbert. Obviously, I prefer if you can afford CeeDee Lamb, Noah Brown. As I say, I think they are the number 1 and the number 2 for the Cowboys. But when you're getting to those more tertiary options, I think Simi Fehoko and Jalen Tolbert are both going to be really interesting to me. Now I gotta check my ownership to really nail down how much interest I'm going to have. We've got Jalen Tolbert 0.4% in the captain spot, 9.7% in the utility spot. I'm going to want to be overweight to the field, at least in the utility spot. I don't know how much I'm going to have. I guess it wouldn't take much to be over the field in the captain spot. I'll probably be over the field on Jalen Tolbert in both spots, just because it's his first game. He got a lot of hype this offseason. The expectation was, with Michael Gallup out to begin the year, Jalen Tolbert was going to be the Cowboys' number 2 receiver. And then, of course, he hasn't been active the first 2 games of the year. So it's really hard to make out what's happening in this situation, why he wasn't active. I'm assuming because they activated him, they're going to use him. So I think I'm willing to go above the field on Jalen Tolbert at fairly low ownership. And then Simi Fehoko, last I checked, is getting virtually no ownership. I mean, we've currently got him at 6.8% projected ownership in the util spot. I'm willing to go above that. He currently, we have negative leverage on Fehoko in the single game tool. I'm willing to go over the field anyway, just because he's 2,400. I think that it's a volatile situation. I think that it's a fragile projection for Simi Fehoko, just because we don't know what's going to happen with the Cowboys' number 3 receiver. So I'm willing to go. I think I'm going to go above the field on both Fehoko and Jalen Tolbert.
How far above the field do you need to be?
I'll probably go. So we have a project for 6.8%. I'm going to be at least double the field on Simi Fehoko. Jalen Tolbert, probably similar. I'm going to be at least double the field at around 10% ownership. I'm going to try and be around 20. Yeah,
it's not like Tolbert wasn't. It's not like he was a late day 3 draft pick either. He didn't have a great camp. He had an even worse preseason. I don't know how much of that plays into it, but he's a 3rd round pick that you assumed would have got some mileage already, just given that Gallup's been out and Amari Cooper's gone. So
yeah,
it's ugly, but you have to look there, because ultimately, and I see people, some comments in chat saying that I don't want any of either of them.
Yeah.
Yes, naturally you wouldn't. On a main slate, you wouldn't want anything to do with them. Couple things though. One, this could end up just being a very low scoring game, and 7 points, 6, 7 points from one of those guys could be sufficient enough at their price points. But another thing is, when you actually look at who Dallas, or Cooper Rush, I should say, has to throw to, it's CeeDee Lamb, obviously, Tony Pollard, and I think Tony Pollard will get a decent amount of passing work today. I have him over 14.5 receiving yards. I'm certain that will come. Yeah, that's at 20.5 now. So big jump on that one. Zeke's only came up 1 yard. Pollard's going to get passing down work. I'd be shocked if he doesn't, especially since Giants, Martindale likes to blitz a lot too. I don't know. Steve Leibowitz said on one of my comments from my Odd Shopper video today that maybe he won't need to. Maybe they'll get pressure anyway. It's totally possible. But pressure is likely going to be a thing here on both sides. Wait till we talk about the Giants' offensive line.
Yeah.
So I think Pollard will be very much involved in the passing game today, and then Noah Brown. But without Schultz and without Gallup, it really is just it's a dart throw. So why not, if you can, if you're playing many lineups like you are, why not just take shots on all of these guys and hope that one of them ends up being a semi-quality wide receiver 3 on a team that doesn't really have a quality pass catching tight end this week either.
Yeah, exactly right. And yeah, it's easier to play these guys if you're not playing 1 or 2 lineups. If you're playing a 20 entry, I think it's worth it to take some shots on these guys. But I get it if you don't want to. It is an ugly situation. I like to embrace that ugliness in DFS because that's where you can make the most money. If this slate goes the way everybody expects it to, and it's just, the high end guys put up the big scores and they're in the optimal lineup, that's great. People will split it 300 ways and they'll make a little bit of money. I would rather make my money on the slates where things get a little bit weird, go different than people are expecting, and you can make a lot more money that way. So that's why I'm playing these guys, because they're not getting a ton of ownership. But I understand if you want to go a little bit more conservative in your approach, that is totally fine. Did you see my filler arcs super chat says Gano or Richie James guys as last man in flex? So for me, the answer would be it depends on the lineup. Like, it's really hard to answer that question in a vacuum. In general, though, I think Gano is going to be lower owned. And if Richie James is going to get you to basically the salary cap, I'd be more inclined in a vacuum to go to Gano and leave a little bit of salary on the table. But honestly, it's hard to answer independent of the rest of your lineup. But just because Gano is a little bit cheaper, if you can leave a little bit more salary on the table that way, I'd probably go Gano.
All right. Thanks for the super chat, man. Sam Pierce, Ferguson or Tolbert or Fehoko, most points. That's not an easy answer.
It's a very tough question.
I would say Fehoko only because Tolbert has not played a single snap this season yet, which who knows, might not mean much. Ferguson has been on the field a lot, but mostly blocking. He has 0 targets through 2 games. Fajoko's actually been involved. He's the only one that's actually either been involved in the offense or been on the field.
Yeah. So we do have Jake Ferguson. The expectation is that he is the tight end 1. We have him as the highest projection today. So, I mean, that might be our best answer. The projections team has Ferguson projecting a full point better than Jalen Tolbert, and Simi Fehoko a little bit behind them. But as I said earlier, I think these projections are fairly fragile because we just haven't really seen what this team is going to look like with Dalton Schultz out. So hard to answer that one, but breaking the tie, I'd probably go with the projections team, and that would be Jake Ferguson. I will say, just going back to my filler arcs question, Richie James does project, nearly 2 fantasy points better than Graham Gano. So if it's not the largest field GPP, Richie James it does project better. So that is a consideration. Depends on the tournament as well.
Yeah. And again, we don't know if Ferguson's going to be involved in the passing game, but if he is, then yeah, that's your guy. Jordan pulled up the player compare tool as well. Totally free. If you have the 1v1 questions and you want to just use our projections, our stochastic projections and our ownership, you have it right there. You have the salary, the projections, the ownership. You can do 1v1, 2v2. I'm telling you, for you guys that are hand building lineups, this is an amazing tool because you're getting our projections right there, and you can run as many of these comparisons as you want, 1v1 or 2v2. So check it out. We also have the lineup generator. I guess it's a good time to tell you that for $1, you get all of our showdown content for a week as well. Literally all of it. I have to disclaim it. Not Fantasy Cruncher, because we don't own Fantasy Cruncher. We just host them on the site. We're talking about the top plays tool, which is a lot more than it sounds. Neil will attest to that. He uses it every single week on every single showdown game. It's giving you, the optimal probability it's giving you top overall probability for top score, whether they're in the 2 through 6, which, in DraftKings are 2 through 5 on FanDuel, leverage score, ownership projections, all of that stuff, all of the articles. Like I said, the lineup generator now going for showdown, which is amazing, especially again, for people playing only a few lineups, everything. It's $1. And I said earlier today, and I was corrected, Neil, when someone in chat asked me about the Sunday London game. I said, it's a quarter a game if you do it now. So you're getting tonight's game, you're getting Thursday night, you're getting Sunday night, and you're getting Monday night. He said, what about the London game, 9:30? We're going to have tools. I DM'd Alex. I said, we're going to have showdown content and tools for that. He said, yeah, so that's 5. That's 20 cents a game. If you're looking to get in on it, all of the showdown tools that we have for the entire week, $1 works out to 20 cents a game. It's a phenomenal deal. You're essentially getting it for free, but it's free, right? Use the link in the description, or Jordan, throw that link in chat if you haven't done so. Oh, you already did, my man. I can always count on this guy to get the links in there. Check it out. It's $1. All right. Oh yeah, and the Discord, the expert Discord, and a good community in there on top of that. So we talked about Ferguson a little bit. What about Cooper Rush? Because both quarterbacks very cheap on this slate.
Yeah, I mean the quarterbacks always are in play. I shouldn't say always, but they're certainly in play tonight. Most slates, I'm willing to play the quarterbacks. We've got Cooper Rush coming in at 7% owned in the captain spot, 37% in the utility spot. Looks a little bit over owned in the captain spot, a little bit under owned in the utility spot, but in general, just like the amount that the field is playing Cooper Rush looks approximately how much the field should be playing Cooper Rush, which is, as I said, 7% in the captain spot, 37% in the utility spot. He looks a little bit better in the utility spot than the captain spot. If you are playing him in the captain spot, Cooper Rush is a statue. I believe I looked up earlier. He's rushed 12 times in his career for 7 total yards. And I tried looking up his college stats. And from what I read, I don't know if I was on reading the page wrong or what. I think he had negative rushing yards in his college career. I may have been on the wrong page. I don't know, but Cooper Rush does not have a lot of passing upside. So if you are using him probably anywhere on DraftKings, you're better off pairing him with at least one pass catcher. And if he's in the captain spot, I would want to have 2 pass catchers in there.
Okay. Yeah, King Payne said Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari are both active today. Yeah, one of them 5th overall draft pick, I believe. 5th. I think he was 5th overall this year. And Ojulari making his 2022 debut. So both of these guys haven't played this season. They definitely need help there. You said, how do I feel about it? If it's still there, it was earlier, I really liked over 4.5 total sacks for the game between both sides. I like that a lot. As far as how does this game go? I think, yeah, and McGovern's out. Connor McGovern's out for Dallas as well, which I'm assuming you were alluding to. I definitely think that in a spot like this, there's going to be pressure on both sides. And I do think you're going to see a lot of Cooper Rush trying to get the ball out to the guys he trusts, like CeeDee Lamb, who had a monster target share last game. And I think Tony Pollard, I wouldn't be shocked if Tony Pollard finally sees, consistent opportunities in the passing game.
Yeah, I like that.
Anything else which is weird though, because even in neutral or positive game scripts last week against Cincinnati, they were throwing a lot, but that might've just been hey, no one thinks we're going to throw with Cooper Rush on their center.
Right.
And now you might have to make some adjustments. Do you have any other thoughts for kickers here, Brett Maher or the Cowboys defense?
Yeah, so somebody had just asked, am I dumb for considering kicker in the captain spot? And the answer is no. Just the answer is objectively no. A lot of people will say that you're dumb, and if it works out, people will say, oh, what a fluke, what a dumb slate. But it works out more than people think it does. We have Graham Gano owned in the captain spot 3% of the time, optimal 5.2% of the time. I know there are some people who hate it. They're never going to play kicker in the captain spot. They don't have the upside. Yeah, well, then they're the optimal captain in games that don't go off. They don't need to have the upside for 20, 30 fantasy points. If the game doesn't go off, the kicker can be optimal without putting up a ton of points. So both of these kickers look like they are optimal in the captain spot more frequently than they're going to be owned. Brett Maher looks pretty average in the utility spot. He's projected for 17% ownership, 16.7% optimal in the utility spot. Graham Gano owned in the utility spot 20.9% of the time, optimal 24.2% of the time. It's just it's all about the game script. This is a game with a low total. There is a chance in this game that there are, there's 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns, potentially 0 touchdowns. And in that case, if there are a lot of field goals scored, these kickers could be optimal. So I don't hate the idea of playing kicker, and I don't even hate it in the captain spot.
I don't either. And would you really be shocked if there's defensive touchdowns in this game?
Not at all, especially as we were just saying. Now the Giants have a couple defenders back. The Dallas O-line doesn't look like it's shored up. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Me neither. And actually, I do the best bets videos over on OddsShopper for Monday night, Thursday night. We do one for every single game too. That comes out on Wednesday for the main slate for Sunday. But I always give a bonus pick, kind of an egregious bonus pick, Neil, at the end of it. There's a wild prop, like an anytime touchdown score, something that, you kind of change under your couch type situation, put a quarter unit on it. But Dallas to score anytime touchdowns plus 750. And I think with the pressure, as you were just saying, it's definitely possible. It's definitely in the cards. So.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else for Dallas? Or you want to move on to the Giants?
I mean, we got to at least touch on these tight ends because Dallas Schultz is out. I mentioned that Jake Ferguson has a pretty solid projection for his price tag. He's only 200 and he is, let me look at it. I think he's a 5.29. Let's see. Jake Ferguson, his salary is 200. We have projected for 5.29 fantasy points. If you're using Fantasy Cruncher, you're going to get a ton of Jake Ferguson, most likely at that price tag and that projection. So point per dollar, he looks great. We're projecting him to be the tight end 1 for the Cowboys. Peyton Hendershot projected for 2.93. So we're expecting him to get some opportunities as well at 200. We've got Ferguson at 17% projected ownership, Hendershot at 8% projected ownership. I'm likely to be above the field on at least one, if not both of these guys. I just you got to take your shot somewhere on low owned guys. We don't know how it's going to break down, but I'm going to embrace that uncertainty and play these guys at relatively low ownership. And I guess
Hendershot.
Yeah, I thought there was a third potentially, Sean McKeon. I don't know. I'll have to look at it. I don't think I'm going to be playing any Sean McKeon. It's probably just going to be those two for me, but I guess you could consider Sean McKeon. I think he is at least active. Yeah, he's not on the inactives list, so you could consider him.
Who knows? I mean, listen, random, especially these primetime games, it feels like this, that you're always getting that random tight end touchdown. So it is funny though, in this case, you already have two guys that are random enough, right? So
I know, right? Well, yeah, we have Sean McKeon projected for 0 fantasy points. So I think our expectation is that he's probably not going to get any opportunity here, but he would be a very long shot. You could probably find enough leverage just on the other two. And yes, they are real players that are on the Cowboys stepping in for Dalton Schultz.
Peyton Hendershot.
Right?
All right. Hey, hit that thumbs up. Anthony Marcus said that he's reminding everyone since I haven't been doing it every 5 minutes. Come on. I'm not incessantly asking. I ask you every, 20 minutes. And if we're killing the game, I'll make sure to thank you guys for it. We're at 235. We have over 2,000 people watching. We're talking about a 10% like to viewer ratio. It's weak. It's rough. You embarrass me in front of my family. I can't go downstairs after the show. Right now,
don't do it to Laffy. Why would you do this to Laffy? Just hit that like button.
I'll probably just stay up here and avoid the embarrassment. She probably already put my bags out on the lawn.
Just in case.
Anyway. What?
Just in case you don't get the likes.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time. It has nothing to do with likes, but but yeah, no, we got it. There we go. All right, over 300. Appreciate you guys. We're cruising. And subscribe if you haven't done so yet. If you like this content. Giants. Oh, wait, no house advantage. Neil, dude, you told me that they had a sick MME tool right on the site.
I don't want to talk about it, Laffy. I was telling you how much I lost on no host advantage when chasing overlay. I didn't
bring that up.
But yes, you didn't. So it's a pretty slick tool that I tried using yesterday. It did not work out for me. I didn't really spend that much time on it because I was heading out for dinner. I wanted to jam in some lineups. But they have a tool where you can just choose your props. You choose the player, you choose which prop you want to do, you choose over under, and you can even say do I want to put this only in the 7-point slot or the 7 to 5 point slots, or do I want to use it in the 1 to 3 point slots? Whatever. You can choose the slots that you will use each prop in, and then tell it how many lineups you want it to generate, and it will generate lineups for you based on the props that you choose. So if you use the tool, make sure your props are good, and then you'll win some money. Unlike me, where I just got everything wrong yesterday.
Yeah, you went full zero-sum game on that one.
I did, and it did not work out.
It's a sick site though. Yeah,
it's really cool.
I feel like more and more people are playing it too. I got to just really dive into it now because I have an account. I played there, but for everything it's better now. So they've made more significant improvements over there, and big prize pools. They had 10,000 up top on a showdown slate with a ton of overlay.
Yeah. Also, CW89 asks, who else is pooping? I'm pooping.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right
Got to have diapers on for these shows, right?
Right now?
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Yeah, I tell you, actually, that's a story for another day. We don't have time for that. Plus, no house advantage wouldn't appreciate me talking about firing off steamy dumps during the middle of their read. But let me get back to this for a second. Number one, they just upped it too. $50 first match deposit bonus, up to $50 when you sign up using the link. Description, Jordan can throw it in the chat. You're doing just like you would on DraftKings or FanDuel, except in this instance, all you're doing is taking props. There's no juice on either side and building a lineup. There's no salary. There's no juice. You're building a lineup, and the ones up top get the most points. So it's not a captain system necessarily, but in a sense it is. It's tiered by which ones you like the most, get the most points up at the top. You're putting them in the lineups. You can MME big prize pools right now. Also, pick 'em contest versus other people for a shot at winning 150K in cash. You can test your skills against the house and 20 extra entry if you hit all your picks. Ton of different sports. Use the link in the description. Make sure to do that so you can get up to $50 deposit bonus when you do. And we have the No House Advantage NFL lineup generator. We have the projections for NHA. You can use all of that. The optimal lineups tool over at Stochastic. They're entirely free. So whether it's nohouseadvantage.com, Google Play Store, App Store, whatever it is, check it out. No House Advantage, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. All right. And so someone that said you should get a certain amount of likes to keep the show free for another week. No, this show's always going to be free 100% of the time. Always. We don't do the premium shows.
Can I answer a question real quick so Carla Baker and asks FanDuel captains, and we had somebody asking earlier about FanDuel as well. And I just don't want to, I tend to answer too many DraftKings questions. So I want to jump in while we have a FanDuel question and say, so looking at our tool, it looks like Saquon is going to be the most popular captain. He is the most likely to be optimal as well, but he has negative leverage. So both of these quarterbacks have some positive leverage in the captain spot on FanDuel. Both look like they're a little bit under-owned, with Daniel Jones at 14.2%, Cooper Rush at 9.7%. If you use them, again, I think, especially with Cooper Rush, you probably want a couple Dallas receivers in the flex spots. And then from there, I think Noah Brown looks pretty good at only 5.5% ownership in the captain spot, 7.7% optimal. On FanDuel, you don't have the salary multiplier. So typically it's just the players that whoever puts up the most fantasy points is likely to be the optimal captain. Sometimes it doesn't work out because sometimes the player doesn't fit within the salary constraints, but generally whoever puts up the most fantasy points. So, generally it's going to be just the players who project the best, but sometimes, we overestimate the likelihood that Saquon Barkley is the likeliest to put up the most points. So sometimes these other guys can get a little bit interesting as well.
All right. Someone asked player prop question. DK has Pollard receiving yards at 20.5. Seems criminally low, averaging 35 per game. Cooper loves him. Plus Dallas hurt with pass catchers. Looks too good to be true. You should have looked at it earlier today, brother. It was 14.5. So yeah, if you like 20.5, if you guys are hitting player props too, seriously try to get in early on them if you can. They move. It doesn't take a lot to move them. So if you're getting in early on props, makes a huge difference. Okay, let's talk about the Giants here. I was looking up numbers today for this betting video, Neil, and I knew it was rough on the offensive line, but I didn't know that Daniel Jones was under pressure more than any other quarterback in the league. Even non-blitz pressure, it's like 50%, which is crazy. He's been sacked a ton. He's also spending more time in the pocket than any quarterback not named Justin Fields, which again is why I think you could see some, good things go the way of the defenses tonight on both sides. But in the same breath, you're still going to drop back and throw, even if this is, a lower volume passing team. I really do have a lot of interest in Shepard today. I mean, first game back, he was targeted 4 times. They didn't throw a lot. Saquon Barkley did essentially everything, but he still ripped off a long 60+ yard touchdown. And he's the type of guy that while he's generally always hurt, when he's healthy, he's the top option on that team. Kenny Golladay played 2 snaps last game. 2 snaps. Kadarius Toney, is he officially out? I know he was doubtful. I'm assuming he's officially out.
I believe he's officially out. Wendell Robinson's officially out.
Yep. Robinson officially out. Have you guys by any chance looked at the other receivers that are on this depth chart right now that are actually getting opportunities? You're talking about David Sills and Richie James. That's what we're working with.
I saw a report earlier that they claim they're going to use Kenny Golladay a little bit more today. Whether
Can't
you
get any
believe it or not,
separation anyway.
I know he has not looked good. I'm still probably going to play some Kenny Golladay just for the lack of ownership,
Sure.
but only because I'm playing the largest field GPPs. I would never play him in cash. Probably not playing him in a small field GPP. In the largest field GPPs, I think Kenny Golladay is in play. I see people asking about Darius Slayton, whether he's in play. He appears to be number 5 on the depth chart for the Giants. Maybe he would get into the game, in garbage time. And we could be surprised. Maybe they decide to use Darius Slayton today, but I don't think we even have. Let me double check. I don't think we have a projection for Darius. We do have a projection for 1.57 fantasy points. So
sounds about right.
Yeah. So he probably will actually, honestly, with that kind of projection. If he's the number 5 receiver, there are scenarios where he makes it into the game. Maybe I probably will have him in my player pool. Not a high priority for me. Not somebody I'm going to have in 40% of my lineups, but I'll probably try to get above. We're projecting for 4.6% ownership. I'll probably try to get above that number with Darius Slayton, but just know he might not see the field. It's a real possibility. I don't think he's seen the field yet this year. I don't think he's run a single route. Yeah, he hasn't run a route this year yet. So if you're throwing him out there, just know there's a pretty good chance he puts up 0 fantasy points, might not even see the field. The guys that you're more interested in with the Giants, as you said, Sterling Shepard, 57 routes run, leads the team, 12 targets. David Sills, number 2 so far, 56 routes run, 4 targets. He's not number 2 in targets. And then Richie James, 46 routes runs, 11 targets. I would rank them Shepard, the clear number 1, followed by Richie James, followed by David Sills. Then for me, I think I'm more likely to go to Kenny Golladay, largely because of, them saying that they're going to use him a little bit more. He's a lot more expensive though. So you got to, you're paying up. Kenny Golladay is more expensive than he should be on this slate, but as a result, he's not going to get a ton of ownership. We have him projected for 8.7% ownership for a guy who, they paid a lot of money, and he's 6,200 getting no ownership. I'll probably throw some shares out there, but it's a pretty thin play, to be honest. He just has not gotten the opportunity. We don't really know that he's going to. And then, yeah, I'm not sure how much interest you should really have in Darius Slayton. It's definitely only for the largest field GPPs. As I say, I'll probably be above the field, but I'm not going to feel comfortable with it. I'm not going to feel like it's a likely scenario that it pays off.
Yeah, I'm with you. And for what it's worth, I totally think Golladay with all the receivers out is viable. I just don't think he's very good anymore. And it was easy to blame Daniel Jones. It's easy to blame anyone. If you want to blame Brian Dable for not using him, fine, because we know that there's an issue with Kadarius Toney for sure, just given his lack of playing time when he was healthy. I don't know, but if he wants out of there and there's a rift that we don't know about, maybe he doesn't play a lot. It's possible Kenny Golladay sees 5 targets today, but has he had a good game with the Giants yet? Again, I'm not saying he can't, but I'm not sure if he's had a good game with the Giants yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he has either. Antoine Murphy says Golladay has been more active at practice. Honestly, I haven't been tracking it closely how active he's been. I just saw the report that he is likely to be more active today, and I'm going to take some shots there. I'm going to take them at their word just because it's a single game slate. You don't have that many options with low owned guys. So I think that I'm willing to go there, but yeah, I don't know if he's had a good game. I feel like he was a big target of mine.
I just looked.
Okay. All right.
He had 1.
Good for him.
Yeah. Who knows, man? I'll tell you something crazy though. So Sterling Shepard leads the team with he's running routes on 80% of dropbacks. And then you have David Sills at 79%. You know who's third at 77% routes per 7 on 77% of dropbacks is Saquon Barkley. He's ran 2 fewer routes than Sterling Shepard this season in 2 games. He may only have 11 targets. I say only because it's not like he's getting peppered with 10 per game, but as it stands right now, he's tied for second on this team in targets, and the only guy behind him in the backfield is Matt Breida. So just clear path every single week to easy 20+ touches for Saquon Barkley. I know not a lot has to be said here, but just throwing it out there that he is almost every time Daniel Jones drops back, Barkley is also still on the field and running routes, not just back there blocking.
I do. I think that it's worth talking about Saquon Barkley, even though, as you say, yeah, what do you really need to say? But for anybody who doesn't pay that close of attention to football, yeah, Saquon Barkley is, our top projected play by more than 2.5 fantasy points. He's the most expensive play on the board. He has earned that salary. He's just a great play today. I'm going to have Saquon Barkley in many of my fantasy lineups. He's obviously, as high upside as anybody on this slate, as you say, because he's involved in the passing game. He's obviously he's the number one rusher for the Giants. So yeah, as you say, Saquon Barkley, great play today. If you can fit Saquon Barkley into your lineup and the lineup looks good, yes, play him. He projects well. I will say that I also do have some interest in Matt Breida. His projection for his salary isn't great. He's not a play that I would expect to do very well. He's the backup to Saquon Barkley. He'll have a few opportunities. But I just think for 2,000 with a 5.6% projected ownership, he's the type of player that I like to play only on showdown slates because there are paths for him to pay off his price tag and be optimal. One of them being just the usual game script. He has a few opportunities. He breaks one off for a touchdown. That might be enough at $2,000. He's also, if Saquon Barkley does get hurt, Matt Breida, I think, becomes the RB1 for the Giants. And Saquon Barkley has been hurt before. It wouldn't be that shocking to see him hurt in game. And also garbage time. I think they go to Breida. Maybe they go to Garrett Brightwell, but Breida might be involved in garbage time as well. So I think there are paths to Breida getting there. And at 5.6% projected ownership, I'm going to take some shots there as well.
Yeah, Matt Breida would definitely be the guy if Barkley went down. Yeah. I don't think there's any. Gary Brightwell's played one snap all season. Breida's actually spelling him kind of nicely, right? Averaging around 20% of snaps. So
no. I mean, I just mean like in garbage time. Like, would they go to Brightwell just because of like why even risk Matt Breida? We'll just go to this Brightwell guy instead. I don't know, but yeah, as a backup, it would be Breida for sure.
Like if there's an injury or something, yeah. And it's not like Saquon Barkley is, unfamiliar with injuries. So
right.
I hear you. Okay. Hey, by the way, live before lock coming up after this. Savoca, Gajeski taking you up all the way till kickoff. So don't go anywhere. They won't get close to this amount of likes. You guys are killing it. Appreciate you. We're at what? Well over 400, right?
I don't have.
432.
All right.
I know you're listening, Matt Savoca. I know you're listening.
All right. Law firm.
Yeah, got to. All right. So I like the call on Breida. Again, it's not that you're excited about him. It's never. I know there's a lot of new people that come into these shows for showdowns, and it's a totally foreign format to them, Neil. You know what I mean? Right. It's totally foreign.
Why are you talking about this backup running back who's probably not going to play that much? And yeah, no, I get it. It's just it's a probability thing.
I guarantee there are many people that have come in here, and this is not an indictment on you, obviously, that go, hey, what are these idiots talking about?
I know that there are, because some of them comment sometimes.
Right. And then they never, don't they know that Barkley's the number one?
Yeah.
There's definitely, it definitely happened. But the large majority of people that watch these shows are on the same wavelength. And that's what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Like they get it.
We have a pretty sharp audience in general.
For sure. But you're always going to get the guy that just stumbles upon it and goes, yeah, I'm not playing what was his name?
Oh God.
Taylor Heatherstorm.
No, it ended with
Hendershot.
Yeah. Why are you talking about this Hendershot guy?
Yeah. By the way, I'm not gonna pretend that I'm familiar with it.
Me neither. I didn't know who he was before today. I wouldn't have known that he was a football player.
Yeah. Heatherstorm. I wasn't even I was way off. All right. Where are we at? We hit receivers, right? We haven't talked
about tight end at all. And we just got a question about
let's do it.
Daniel Bellinger. So I mentioned actually in my showdown article earlier today, Tanner Hudson is the guy who has gotten more opportunity so far this year for the Giants. Let me find his routes run information. We've got Tanner Hudson has run 35 routes so far this year and received 3 targets. Daniel Bellinger has run 26 routes so far and received just 1 target. And is that true? I know he has a touchdown this year, so I guess that 1 target might have been for a touchdown. But at this lack of ownership, this is a spot where Daniel Bellinger was expected to be the tight end 1 coming into the year. It's been kind of a surprise to see Tanner Hudson get a little bit more run than Daniel Bellinger so far. But at so little ownership. I'm willing to play both of them. We've got Tanner Hudson projected for 9.3% ownership as a tight end one at 1,600, or the presumptive tight end one, just based on the routes run so far this year. But then Daniel Bellinger, it wouldn't be shocking to me to see him run as get a little bit more play. He's a rookie. He's a talented guy. He's a little bit more. He's at 4,400, so it would take a little bit more for him to pay off that price tag. But he might be able to pay it off in this kind of game environment where it's going to be a low scoring game. You know, if he's the sole touchdown, or there's just like a few touchdowns in the game, and he's one of them at 4,400, even if he doesn't do much outside of the touchdown, I could see him being optimal. So yeah, I like both of the tight ends for the Giants.
Okay. And I do want to ask, are there any spots? I know anybody can use our tools for this. And like I said, it's $1 for the entire week. You're getting 5 showdown slates, so it's 20 cents a piece. So there, no reason that we should have to go over this, but I want to do it anyway. Are there any specific approaches you're taking at captain today? I just, just to drill in the strategy before we build a lineup here. Any players that you plan on being significantly underweight on or overweight on that might kind of open things up, open the eyes for some people that tuned in late?
Yeah, so I mean, Saquon is going to be, a lot of people are going to be going to Saquon at captain. For me, I'm going to look at the single game tool and make sure I'm on DraftKings. In the captain spot, I could go to some Daniel Jones and play a couple receivers in the flex spots. Let me see if there's anybody else. Noah Brown not getting a ton of ownership. I have some interest there. Let's try out Noah Brown at captain. I think I have some interest in Noah Brown as a low owned captain play.
All right, I love it. Dan, we got to hurry up here because we're going to be up against it soon. But and by the way, appreciate you guys. 8 away from 500 likes, crushed it. We're there. But if we're Danny Jones, obviously I think he's a good player. And Rosa Music, what's up, man? Actually super chatted us and said, any chance this game shoots out? Been an odd week. There's a chance any game shoots out, honestly.
Yeah.
Even if it's unlikely, there's a chance that any game can shoot out for sure. So yeah. But what was I getting at here? Oh, just in general, Daniel Jones is the last guy I want to hit on. We already talked about the defense and the kickers here. Very much in play with a low projected total. Yep. Daniel Jones, and then we'll build a lineup.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Jones, he runs a little bit more than Cooper Rush does. So I think that if you're going to play, I think that you could play Daniel Jones in the captain spot with just one wide receiver in flex. I still prefer to. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Lamar Jackson. He does most of his damage through the air. So most likely the majority of his fantasy points are going to be through throwing the ball, in which case, because the receiver outscores the quarterback on every passing play, and Daniel Jones is relatively expensive, he needs to be spreading the ball around to his receivers to be optimal. So I prefer to have a couple receivers in the flex if he's in the captain spot. But yeah, just in general, even in the flex spot, Daniel Jones is going to look pretty good. We have him owned in the utility spot 47.5% of the time, optimal in the utility spot 55% of the time. So Daniel Jones is going to be one of my favorite plays of the night.
Awesome. All right, let's run through this. We got to go quick. Lineup. I'll let you go, captain. Did you want to, if we go large field, do you want to start it with Noah Brown?
Yeah, I do.
All right, let's go Noah Brown. I'm going to go Tony Pollard as well. I really do think that eventually you're going to see Tony Pollard get a lot more work, and I'm willing to take that risk today, even though he's not super cheap or super low owned.
Okay. So sometimes I like to not go to the quarterback that's on the same team as the player that I'm in the captain spot. I think I'm actually going to, in this case, I'm just going to go to Cooper Rush in a flex spot. Make it easy.
So we still have plenty of salary left over. There's Barkley, there's Shepard. Do you want to go Barkley?
Yeah, let's do it.
I think we should.
And
you still have Shepard out there. There's some plenty of good options here. There's kickers, defenses. We have 5,100 per over the last 2 spots.
Yeah. So I kind of like the idea of going to Giants defense, even with having, so this is a little bit of negative correlation that sometimes I like to take advantage of, where we've got Noah Brown and Cowboys, Cooper Rush in the lineup. Yeah. A lot of people aren't going to want to play the Giants defense. I kind of like living with some of that negative correlation.
It's actually the lineup we built today. Had Daniel Jones, I think Barkley and Shepard with Cowboys defense. So
love it.
And on a lower
we've got one
more
spot. Do you have who do you want to put in this last spot? I would say not using 6,400 or probably below.
it's pretty ugly down here.
Yeah.
I don't mind going with. So we don't have Daniel Jones, right? We have Giants D. I don't mind going with Graham Gano here at all.
Yeah, I'd be fine with Graham Gano.
Leave you at 2,400.
Yep.
That could work. All right.
Maybe low own. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, Neil's over on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. Follow him for all his takes, all his showdown strategy. Me at Laffy_D, LOUGHY_D. Matt Savoca, Matt Kajeski taking you all the way up to lock. Appreciate you guys. You're the greatest. And shout out, show your boy Jordan Love some Klein in the chat for producing this show tonight. Yeah, he hates that. He hates that. Yeah,
That's the first I've heard it, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, go ahead and say hi, Jordan. Go ahead and say. No, he just hates being on camera and all that. I don't know why. All right, appreciate you guys. We'll catch you back here Thursday night on the Deeper Dive. Don't go anywhere. Live Before Lock coming up next. Peace.
All right, we're back at it again. Monday, September 26th in the sports world. That means it's another day and another time for Sharp Bet of the Day. I am Ben Raza. This is Odd Chopper. In this video, I'm going to be detailing my favorite bet of the day across the sports world, from Monday Night Football to maybe soccer to whatever we can find. We're going to dig through the lines, try to find the value, and most importantly, cash the ticket. If you've stumbled upon Odd Chopper, if you're looking for something different, this is where you want to be. I know a lot of you longtime listeners, you already hit that like button every time you stop in, and we appreciate it. But for everyone new, that really does help. And check out what we have on this channel. And if you like what you see, why don't you join the community? We're over 20,000 subscribers. You could be part of that, growing quickly, and we want you along for the ride. Last time I saw everybody, college football streets, Ohio State at night on Saturday, it was 21-0 before I could blink. Smooth sailing. That is what we want. We wanted some momentum to finish off last week. We got just that. We cashed that ticket. Now we move on to the NFL. In addition to that, risk-free bet of up to $1,000 is still available over at BetMGM with the promo code BensBet. Link in the description of this video. Click that link and at least read about it. If you're a new user, you sign up and you're going to get that risk-free bet of up to $1,000. It's a great opportunity to take advantage. Now, where are we going today? I said soccer, but I don't want to scare people off. I'm not going to soccer. Don't worry. I'm going to Monday Night Football. Not the game itself, because I think it's a pretty fair spread. I'm going to a prop specifically with the Giants quarterback and Daniel Jones. Danny Dime.
Live before lock, Monday Night Football, Dallas and the New York Giants. An absolute barn burner, as Laffy said last hour, and my name is Matt Savoca. It's the Mats once again, just like it was yesterday for Sunday Main Slate. I'm here with the man himself, the legend, Matt Gajeski. Follow him at Matt_Gajeski, and we are brought to you today by No House Advantage. More great tournaments in there, but first, got to see how Matt's doing. How are you today, man? You ready for this one?
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I might be in the minority here, but I like having these sort of greasy games on Thursday Night Football, on Monday Night Football. We kind of ignore them on the main slate. So now we get a chance to actually dive in. Like, I don't know how many times this year I'm going to consider playing David Sills and Jake Ferguson, but tonight I actually get to talk about that.
We are so lucky to talk about David Sills and Jake Ferguson. You are absolutely right. What positive perspective we have. And did anyone else notice right at the end that Laffy said, show Jordan Love some Klein? You got to play that back, but I'm almost positive he said, show Jordan Love some Klein. He's the GOAT. It's okay. And, we're trying to show him up. Maybe hit the like button. We got a bunch of you in here. Hit that like button. Get us way past what Laffy had last hour. You guys know what to do. We go position by position in live before lock. So we started right at the very top with inactives and actives, and Kadarius Toney is out. Michael Gallup is still out. Dalton Schultz is out. Those are the primary offensive inactives. Were you surprised there? Did that change the way you're building lineups? Talk to us about these in and out players.
Gallup actually did surprise me. I was expecting Gallup to play tonight. It seemed like there was a lot of optimism on him. Seemed like maybe a snap count, but ultimately they decided to take the cautious approach with Gallup. Probably good for them in the long term. But yeah, that did come as a surprise to me. Was it a surprise to you?
Yes. This morning, it was interesting because it seemed much more positive like 5 or 6 days ago, and then I heard nothing. And then I got ready for the main slate. And so from there, it felt like, okay, well, maybe he backtracked. Maybe he had a little setback, but I think it sounds like they're just trying to think of the long term. Dalton Schultz, also no go. And then you got Kadarius Toney as well. I mean, is there somebody who's going to emerge from this New York receiving core? I guess we'll get there when we talk about receivers, but no Wan'Dale, no Kadarius Toney. Could it be a Kenny Golladay week?
Man, I've not seen a more disappointing offseason from a player in a long time, at least in recent memory. For him to play reasonable snaps in week 1, do relatively little, almost nothing, and then come out and play single-digit snaps in week 2. He was like last week, they used David Sills and Richie James over him, and Sterling Shepard, of course, but that's kind of a given. I don't really know what would have changed in the week. Dable kind of is playing this, all right, you had a good week of practice, we'll get you on the field, but I mean, I think once some guys separate themselves talent-wise, he's not going to be able to do that as much. But has Kenny Golladay had a good week of practice? I mean, I haven't really heard anything on him. He might just fully be in the doghouse at this point.
Did you Freudian slip when you said separate? Because that's the thing that Kenny Golladay can't do. That's the issue. So I don't know. It's a 1-game slate. If we're talking about David Sills, we're talking about Kenny Golladay as a possibility. We'll get into it. I think that probably really sums it up. Micah Parsons being in for the Dallas defense, that active matters. That's for sure. What do you say? We get to the quarterback position. We only got, 7:33 already. We got some time. We got to get rolling.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. 2 quarterbacks, 2 unbelievable talents, Daniel Jones and Cooper Rush. Obviously, there's some salary differential. But how are you feeling about these 2 quarterbacks? Is Daniel Jones going to give us the rushing upside we need, or is Cooper Rush really as good as Jerry Jones is pretending he is when he does his little pump up speeches in his radio hour?
Love Jerry, but we never get anything straight from him. Injuries, player performance, whatever it may be, Jerry's just not giving it to you straight. So no, I don't think he's as good as Jerry's making it out to be. Otherwise, he'd likely have a starting job somewhere. But Daniel Jones, he's always going to be interesting for the mobility he provides. I thought this New York offense was going to be a lot better. I just expected more talent to be on the field. Like not seeing Kadarius Toney at first, it seemed like he was in the doghouse, but now due to injury, that's a negative. And then Kenny Golladay, just whatever has happened to him in his career, I thought these were going to be productive playmakers on the field for Daniel Jones, and he's having to throw the ball to rookie tight ends. Like I like Bellinger, but we know the curve for them is steep and it takes a while. So that's not ideal. And then throwing to Sterling Shepard, months removed from an Achilles. Ideally, you'd like to give him some space. You're throwing to practice squad receiver David Sills. You're throwing to kick return specialist Richie James. Like Saquon's there, but this is far from ideal for Jones. You're really kind of just hanging your hat on the volume and the mobility.
What an unbelievable situation you just described. No, it's not pretty for Daniel Jones, but number 4 in carries per game at 8.0 right now. Number 5 in red zone carries per game among quarterbacks with 2.0, and he's lower salary. That's the cost benefit equation there from Daniel Jones. If you're talking about playing him, I do think that when you look at our top plays tool, he's popping for us. I do think that when you just think about a general fundamentals of quarterback on a single game slate, he makes a ton of sense. I'm going to get to a lot of Daniel Jones. His current leverage score looks fantastic, especially on DraftKings. He's kind of unavoidable on this slate. I'm going to use him in the captain spot, but to get to some of these super chats, Chris Albers says, my favorite captain for single entry, he doesn't quite make it. He's in the top 3 though. To answer your question, I actually think Noah Brown is my favorite single entry captain if you're trying to win a large field single entry tournament. How about you for that same question from Chris Albers?
I like that one too. I do think Daniel Jones is viable there. I think people are still going to try to gravitate to, your Saquon Barkley's, of course. He's probably going to be the heaviest. But then CeeDee Lamb, I'm anticipating to be number 2, and it looks like our tools are in agreement with that. I think you could get to Noah Brown, but I also think Daniel Jones is still coming up with a decent amount of leverage in the captain spot. However, I do like throwing some of his pass catchers in there too. So I don't hate a contrarian Sterling Shepard, or it's got to be a pretty big single entry. But if you're going to do Richie James or something like that, I'm probably looking at like 100,000 entries.
Okay, that makes sense. I just feel like you can get a significantly more opportunity value in Noah Brown. But again, it's variance. Richie James, that's one I was kind of honing in on for large field as well. So that makes sense. Julio G asks, what process or formula do you use to predict, or we don't predict dupes? You don't really have to, but we do use a process to reduce dupes. And I would suggest checking out the videos that Neil Orfield, who you saw last hour, has specifically on Showdown slates on this very stochastic DFS channel, talking about all the ways he sets up Fantasy Cruncher so that he specifically uses the optimizer to create unique lineups. Pretty awesome stuff. Long story short, one of the easiest ways to leave salary on the table or to use the randomness function within Fantasy Cruncher. But there's a bunch of ways you can go about doing it. Check out that video for more information. Let's head over to Cooper Rush. We know the receiving situation is not good. No Schultz. No Gallup. CeeDee Lamb is out there on an island. Noah Brown's definitely going to get some run. We have to care about people like Simi Fehoko. What does that mean for Cooper Rush? Currently, his captain ownership is coming in sub 7% on DraftKings. So that makes him a contrarian play, especially at a fairly high salary.
Yeah, it's funny to say that. He still comes in with negative leverage in the captain spot specifically. He's, according to our tools, a much better flex play. And I think that makes some sense. You're not really considering him mobile like a premier dual threat. Like I would definitely prefer Daniel Jones in that regard. So the leg game, it's not really giving you a ceiling. And then as a passer, Cooper Rush leaves a lot to be desired. What happens a lot of times with these backup quarterbacks, they play well through a game or two. Teams get a sample size on them. They can study their tendencies, and then these guys regress. Now, that could happen here. He's certainly facing a stiffer test in New York than we've seen thus far. They're getting back some pass rushers tonight. I don't think that helps, especially against an offensive line that's already lost some talent. So with Rush, you could certainly see one of the pass catchers. I think CeeDee Lamb is most likely for this, just through PPR volume. Cooper Rush peppers him with targets, and then the raw points he's getting from the catches is enough to outscore Cooper Rush. So I think that's why we're seeing him as a better flex play than a captain play. And that's where I'll be targeting him.
Is Jason Peters going to start?
I think so. That's what all the reports are suggesting. I mean, he's like 40 years old.
He's very old. That I know. Okay.
Like, dude, they are so banged up on the offensive line. And they
need
I'll say they were thin. Yeah. Like they were okay, but they were very thin. And this is not a situation they can have.
I guess that's better. Cooper Rush has been okay. At least he's pushing the ball downfield so far. His air yards per attempt, his 8.6 air yards per attempt right now, that's top 10 in the NFL. He actually has a decent deep ball. His deep ball completion percentage currently top 12 in the NFL. I know it's a low sample size. The season is young. He's 6th among quarterbacks in QBR. It's actually been a little impressive. Fantasy points per game would tell you otherwise, but I actually think there's a little bit of upside, or so the advanced metrics say, especially if he gets some extra time to throw. There's all the concerns I see that you see with such a depleted offensive line and receiving core. At the very least, the Cowboys play fast, number 3 in team pace of play. So maybe we have some options here, unless they just completely rely on the 2 running backs, which is actually a possibility here. I definitely actually have some high hopes, some ceiling potential I see for Cooper Rush today.
Yeah, I could see it as you lay out. I think the only other thing you're really asking yourself is, what is the opportunity cost with Cooper Rush? So he's narrowly behind like CeeDee. He's narrowly behind like Saquon. Saquon's a little bit more expensive, so he's kind of in a different price range, but there is opportunity cost with him too. So it comes down to, are you getting enough leverage to squeeze out of that? And that's a very real question. You laid out the bull case for it. I've leaned a little bit on our tools. I like Cooper Rush. I'm still going to be playing him in the flex, but he's dicey. But in large field tournaments, these are the kind of guys you want to look at.
Absolutely. Again, in median projection, he's definitely not going to look as good on a salary-based expectation basis because Daniel Jones essentially has the same passing yard projection on Stokastic.com and has more rushing upside. I just want to make the ceiling case for Cooper Rush. It exists today. How often does it happen? That's for you to decide. This is not a day we're playing backups in the Millie, right? We're not playing backup quarterbacks. You you guessed it. You nailed it with Malik Willis. Like, we got to talk about it for a second.
Yeah, I was lucky, very lucky. We just got like the perfect game script for that to happen.
We do not want to see. I don't even know who the backup is for the Giants.
Tyrod Taylor.
Oh, okay. Well, who knows? No, it's not. We're not doing it. Okay, we're moving on. We're moving on. Okay, we definitely should talk about how we have an awesome package for you guys, specifically for Showdown slates. The prime time giveaway right now is just awesome. We got the London game coming up as well. So not only do we have Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, like usual, but you got the Sunday London game this week. And we get all the Stokastic single game and showdown tools for $1 with that promo code PRIMETIME. All one word, PRIMETIME. Gives you access to all of our tools for Showdown specifically. Offer valid through September 29th. One thing I should add, though, and I know Laffy added it last hour, we can't give away Fantasy Cruncher. We host Fantasy Cruncher on the site, but we don't own that. We can give you away all the tools like the top plays tool. We've been mentioning that a lot. Ownership projections, the lineup builder. And if you want to get in on the action now, check out the player compare tool, absolutely free, and use promo code PRIMETIME. All right, we got running backs for days, or at least 3 of them that are quite valid, and I guess a couple more if you want to play large field tournaments. Talk to me about Saquon Barkley. It's really hard to get away from him, and he's got the highest floor on the slate, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100% agree. There's not really a lot of holes to poke in him. His workload, it's consistent through all game scripts. If they're down, he's going to be catching passes, so that's positive. You're really just trying to navigate the price and then the ownership on him. He's going to be the most owned player on tonight's slate. And I've been trying to navigate our tools a lot to see where the optimal place to play him is. He's going to be very owned in captain, and he's around 20%. I won't give you the specific number. These are available to you. You just laid out a great way to get them. But he's coming in below that in terms of the optimal captain. It looks like he's a pretty solid play in the flex. And what this comes down to is there's plenty of other players you can use in the captain spot that have maybe not the same upside, but it's at least high enough where maybe you want to consider those players. One of the guys you mentioned, Noah Brown. So with Saquon, it's not a matter of, do I want to play him? It's kind of, where do I want to play him? And in the lineups where he's captain, I think you need to be really careful about how you build your lineups. Make sure you're finding some leverage because he's going to be really owned there. And then when he's in the flex, that's where you're getting primarily the most leverage from him tonight. So I'm a little comfortable with him in that position.
I'm glad you laid it out from just like a pure game theory standpoint, but let's talk about the football player for a minute.
He's awesome.
He looks awesome again. I mean, and the opportunity is certainly there. Number 4 in the NFL in carries, number 6 in targets, number 6 in red zone touches. Fairly impressive considering the offense he plays on. And expected fantasy points per game, that opportunity value metric on a scale that's easier to understand. 18.3, fantastic. And he's actually outperforming that in terms of points per game. So I see a ton of upside here just because the team needs him so much in order to win. When it goes well for the New York Giants, how many times does it go well for the Giants without Saquon going off with the way this roster looks right now? I mean, I guess Daniel Jones has a rushing upside game in him, but it just it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that's why, like even if Daniel Jones has a really good game, like Saquon's probably coming along with him. And maybe it's Daniel Jones that has the captain winning score, but if Saquon's coming along with him, he's probably going to be in the flex. Like you want to play Saquon Barkley. It's only the largest of field tournaments where I'm fading him. Smaller field, cash games, he's in there.
The only person of note other than Barkley is Matt Breida, 17% snap share, 12% opportunity share, 1 target, 6 carries total this year. He is spelling Barkley in terms of snaps, but basically there just to give Barkley a breather, 2.5 expected fantasy points per game. is there, I mean, injury is the path to upside. Are you getting to him if you play 20 lineups, or do you have to play even more than that to really take a chance on Breida?
Yeah, more than 20. He's probably like your 150 kind of build guy. I won't be playing him tonight. He's kind of relying on an injury, to be honest with you.
And, obviously this is a small sample size, but 2 evaded tackles total, 14% route participation rate. It's
I want to bring up like something slate contextual wise for this. So with Breida tonight, we have so much value we can be targeting. A lot of times it comes down to alternatives. Like, for example, when the Eagles are on Showdown sometimes, maybe if there's no value, I'll consider like Boston Scott or one of these guys who's just going to touch the ball 5 times or less. But tonight we have so much value. You could go to Fehoko. You could go to a cheap Giants receiver. We have kickers and defenses. We'll get to the tight ends, but we actually have stone minimum guys. So a lot of it is just alternatives. And there's a lot of alternatives to playing a Breida tonight.
That's a good way of putting it, especially because the salary pricing came out expecting more actives, especially in the Dallas side. So it creates these value opportunities elsewhere. Safeton, what's up, man? I've seen you in here before. Good to see you again. Thanks for hanging out, and thanks for the super chat. He asked, hi, thoughts on double kicker lineups? Absolutely for cash. Or I guess small field, you can put them both in the flex, but they are high floor, low ceiling options in general. Maybe in this game, it's a little bit different, but that's my general advice. How about you, Matt?
Same for me as well. I generally try to avoid them in captain if I can, but also generally I like kickers in lower scoring game environments. We have that tonight. It's not a great total overall. So the chance that, a couple kicks outscores one of the cheaper mid-price guys, it's more likely. And just from a talent perspective, these are 2 pretty good kickers. So I'm not worried about like a backup or something coming in. So yeah, kickers in general can be a good leverage point. People don't like clicking kickers. That's just to be frank about it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel great, but they're going to score points. They're going to score points even in the worst of situations. And it's just that getting to a true ceiling game requires the game flow has to thread a specific needle, which I guess with Giants Cowboys actually could happen, just not the most likely thing to happen. Let's move it over to the Cowboys side, and we got 2 very, very interesting players to talk about. Ezekiel Elliott, I think the thing to say is Ezekiel Elliott looks worse, but is getting all the opportunity. And then Tony Pollard looks better, but has a complete cap on his opportunity because of Ezekiel Elliott. How are you playing them today? Are you playing them together at all? And do you see a better ceiling for one or the other?
I see a better ceiling for Pollard. And I think that comes just through, it's close to a 50-50 timeshare. It's not quite there, but it's trending in that direction. Pollard, for the longest time now, has just been the more explosive, efficient player. And they've been resistant to giving him the full opportunity. And, this has been a sore spot for me, but this offseason, Dallas saying they're going to use him in the slot and then essentially not doing it more than a handful of snaps was irritating. But even in the pass game, his role appears to be better than Ezekiel Elliott's. And I think he still has the same or at least similar touchdown upside. So the argument with Elliott is like he needs to score on the goal line. Well, Pollard, in his role, he has the opportunity to do that as well, but then he's also involved in the pass game to a higher degree. So I do prefer Pollard. It is close, though. This is going to be a near 50-50 timeshare. And as far as playing them both in the same lineup, I think you can do that. But I would be playing for a very specific game script where Dallas gets up in this game and they play with a lead throughout so they can utilize Ezekiel Elliott and then maybe Pollard can still catch his passes.
Wouldn't the Dallas Cowboys fans be so lucky if that were the game flow to build around, or if that was the game flow that actually occurred? I buy it. Ezekiel Elliott is at 62% in snap share. Just a 54% opportunity shares outside the top 25 running backs so far this season. I mean, the amount of carries he's getting says that he's in the game script as the primary running back. 12.5 carries per game is running back 18. But 2 targets a game so far. 45% route participation rate outside the top 18 running backs. As you said, I just don't really see a ton of ceiling here unless he nails a breakaway run, which he's yet to do this entire season. I know you were talking this offseason about how Elliott was way more hurt than he let on last season, but I'm disappointed. I see 3.6 yards per touch, a 29.6% juke rate outside the top 20 running backs. And he's actually just he's not getting a huge amount of carries like with stuffed boxes either, stacked fronts. This is not a good situation. I much prefer Pollard in a vacuum, just in a football standpoint. I know there's some game theory, salary-based things you got to consider, but 15 carries isn't that much less. And he's got 9 targets compared to Elliott. And basically the same amount of opportunity share total. I just think Pollard is a better player right now and has more valuable opportunity when you break it down.
I agree with you 100%.
Yards per reception too. He's back up there again, man.
He's elite,
11.5 yards per reception. Number 3 yards per out run.
How frustrating was it watching Dennis Houston play a full route share, knowing that you could, like Pollard, he's a running back. I get it. His natural position is running back, but he's an excellent receiver. You're telling me that Pollard playing out of position at receiver isn't better than Dennis Houston? I don't buy it, and I'm not sure why they made that decision.
Also, it's pretty strange to go from undrafted free agent playing like pretty significant snaps in the first game, a 57% snap share, to just completely cut in 2 weeks for Dennis Houston. Like what was the eval there that they were like, okay, you make the roster, you're getting tons of playing time. Oh, actually, no, you can't play. You can't play at all.
Well, I mean, that was the correct evaluation to begin with. Like we saw him in the preseason. He didn't do anything.
Yeah, and then Tolbert's inactive. We're going to see Tolbert tonight. We're going to get to the wide receivers in just a minute. We got a super chat here from Quinn M. Hey, member for 12 months. That's awesome, Quinn. Cash lineup FanDuel. Is it mandatory to play both quarterbacks? Matt, I'll kick it to you.
Probably. It's a tough decision on FanDuel where it's scored a little differently. You don't have the PPR like upside for like receivers can definitely outscore quarterbacks over there, but it's just a little less likely with the PPR bonuses, and the pricing structure is just so different. I'm going to say yes.
On a point per dollar basis, the quarterbacks are, you know, of the upper tier players, like the ones projected for more than like a point. It's actually they're number 2 and number 4, meaning that we have Saquon and Noah Brown, who's projected for a solid 8.5 points, above them in terms of pure value ranking on FanDuel. I'm definitely playing one. Cash, I'm probably playing 2. I'm probably going to say 80% chance you want to play 2, even on a night like tonight.
Yeah, I'm just going to run the Fantasy Cruncher right now and see how much we get. That's at the bottom, or at the bottom line. I always just like to do that as like the last run. And out of the lineups, you get a decent amount of rush. It's not a ton, but he is in the number 1 optimal, which he's in the top 2 actually. So we can take that for what it's worth. He's not in all of them, but he is in the top 2.
He or both?
Both. So Daniel Jones is in them all. Like okay. You're playing Daniel Jones in cash without a doubt. It comes down to whether you want to play rush or not.
Gotcha. That makes sense to me because of the higher salary and basically the same projection. Hope that answers your question, Quinn. And I'll tell you what the answer to your third platform. If you're playing FanDuel and DraftKings already, get into the action over on No House Advantage. We're team third platform, team third book. Expand your horizons, especially when you've got Stokastic.com projections and specific tools for No House Advantage. First of all, it looks great over there. They got a new visual identity. The site looks awesome. And if you like overlay, which I really do when I play DFS, No House Advantage is the place for you. Right now, I'm looking at their 20K Monday Night Football Showdown with 10K to first. $15 entry, 32% full at the moment. We're at 7:55 Eastern time, 20 minutes from lock. NFL 2K play action pass with 1K to first, $5 entry, 44% full. Yeah, guys, this is overlay at its finest. So definitely check out the link in the video description below. No House Advantage is awesome. Get into the action over there. It's awesome stuff. And we see another super chat here from Malcolm Revamp. For DK and FD Cash, who is your captain MVP? For FD Cash, it's Daniel Jones, most likely. For DK Cash, I'm looking it up. I'm probably... It changes based on my tournaments and how many lineups Well, sorry, you asked Cash. Sorry. I'm just pulling up my DraftKings because I had it closed. Do you have yours up, Matt?
Yeah, it's Barkley for me. It's a little closer on FanDuel. I think you could run Barkley or Daniel Jones. Over there, I kind of prefer Daniel Jones a little bit, but it's Barkley and DK.
It's Saquon for me too. There you go. The floor and ceiling combination, I'm willing to pay up for it in cash. Let's go to the wide receiver position. A fascinating position, if not full of backups, other than CeeDee Lamb. We'll start on the Dallas Cowboys side. This is the superstar player of the slate, besides Saquon Barkley, of course. CeeDee Lamb is going to see, or should see, plenty of work, and I can't really see the Dallas Cowboys succeeding unless CeeDee gets plenty of work. 11 targets both of the first 2 games, 7 receptions last week for 75 yards. He's had over 100 air yards each week. Can Cooper Rush give CeeDee a ceiling week?
I think he absolutely can, and I think the volume is good enough there where you should be considering CeeDee regardless. The only argument against him, in my opinion, is leverage. If you're playing like the Millie Maker and you want to decide to build without him, I think that's viable. But among all pass catchers on this slate, he's number 1, and I don't see it as being particularly close, even when you adjust for price. Even with an inefficient quarterback, the volume is just going to be so good for CeeDee Lamb. I don't really see a way you can get away from him outside of just saying, okay, I'm playing in the Millie, and I want to just actively decide to avoid him. And even there, I'm not sure that's a strategy that's worthwhile. If you're playing multiple lineups, I would never do that. But if you're playing just one, I think you can decide to make that call.
CeeDee Lamb currently has a 42% chance of being in the top 2 through 6 players. If we're looking at our DraftKings top plays tool, that's better than everyone except for the quarterbacks and Saquon Barkley. You know, I'm seeing in chat, Antoine Murphy is saying Zeke is the biggest priority for the Cowboys. But the reality is the actual biggest priority for the Cowboys offense in most game flow situations is CeeDee Lamb. Can they get the ball to CeeDee Lamb? Maybe the ownership and the coaching staff wants it to be Ezekiel Elliott. But when they get punched in the mouth, when push comes to shove, they need to get the ball to CeeDee Lamb. I'm happy to see 11 targets each of the first 2 games. He hasn't been particularly efficient in terms of yards per route run or yards per target. We know what's capable for CeeDee Lamb. The opportunity is there. The route participation, of course, is there. It really just depends on exactly game theory and you just deciding from a DFS standpoint, I'm going to cut him off. There's no real logic to it.
And from game theory, you're not making any concessions.
Right.
Like you can play Daniel Jones, Barkley, and CeeDee Lamb easily, and you can probably honestly fit Cooper Rush in there too. We have value for days tonight, and it's not like we're dealing with Justin Jefferson on the other side. So there's not really alternatives within the position with his ceiling. And then these are decisions we don't even really need to make outside of the Millie Maker. Like if you're playing in anything like 50K entries or less, I'd probably just play CeeDee Lamb.
There you go. How about Noah Brown? He's the number 2 tonight. Actually has 14 total targets already this season. Saw 9 targets in week 1, 5 in week 2. Had a touchdown in week 2. 5 receptions in 2 straight games. Can the dude play, or is it a little fluky?
I think he can play. I don't think he's like an NFL starter, but he was drafted a long time ago. He's actually hung around the roster for multiple years now. It's like a pretty consistent wide receiver 4 or 5. So he can play at the NFL level. He's not like a replacement level guy. He is an NFL roster guy, and he's going to be the wide receiver 2 here just because of lack of alternatives. If they do decide, the Giants, that is, to dedicate coverage CeeDee Lamb's way and maybe leave Noah Brown open, you could get some really cheap volume here. And then these guys aren't at the same price. So it's like CeeDee Lamb can still have a really good game. And then if it's Noah Brown that catches a touchdown or 2, maybe from a price adjusted standpoint, you might want Noah Brown in your captain spot because he affords you just a better lineup altogether. So I like Noah Brown a lot tonight. He's one of our highest positively leveraged players. Dallas is going to be expected to play from behind slightly, and that should benefit Brown.
Okay. I see it too. It would be great if Noah Brown did something did more at this point.
Is he the 3rd best receiver on the slate?
Yeah, he is.
I think so too. Not just from a DFS perspective, but talent-wise, probably too.
He's the 3rd best receiving option, including tight ends.
Yeah, I think you just have to include like Barkley if you want
Barkley over him if you're.
But they're used so differently. Barkley's not running routes. He's catching dump offs.
Get Tony Pollard more passes. But yeah, Noah Brown, I'm going to have plenty of him. And I think he's a very sneaky single entry captain if you want to get contrarian with it. Chris Albers, thank you for the super chat. Last in the flex. Oh, here we go. Tolbert or Ferguson?
Ferguson.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Jalen Tolbert, man. He's here. Finally. We can talk about Jalen Tolbert in a DFS slate like all we've ever wanted. Because he was getting a lot of hype early in training camp. Now he's going to play, apparently. Are you getting to him at all? How many rosters does one have to make in order to be getting to Jalen Tolbert?
150, in my opinion. He's not hurt. He played all preseason poorly. He wasn't a great prospect to begin with. He's like super old. I believe he's 23 coming out of South Alabama. So he's like an old prospect. He didn't check a ton of boxes. His production came late in his career. So from a prospecting standpoint, he wasn't great. He wasn't bad. I think people are just trying to figure out, all right, we have a offense that passes the ball a lot and plays at the speed of light. Who's going to be the wide receiver 2 without Gallup? And turns out he got beat out by a guy, Noah Brown, who's played on the roster for a long time. But not only that, he got beat out by Simi Fehoko, who was playing snaps already this season. He was not a healthy scratch while Tolbert was. I think best case scenario, you have like a wide receiver 4 in Tolbert here who plays a handful of snaps. Fehoko was really interesting coming out of Stanford. Not really productive there, but that offense was bad. He played in some COVID seasons. They kind of shortened his older years there, but he was really athletic when he came out and he's big. So he at least has that going for him. I'd rather throw darts on Fehoko than Jalen Tolbert.
I've had Fehoko stashed on a taxi squad or two.
I've played him in preseason. He's been good.
I'd like to see something out of him. The 5th round pick in 2021. Still just 24 and a half years old.
Really athletic.
Very fast, yeah. And like you said, 6'4", 222, some length, some size, decent catch radius. And if you look at the advanced metrics, yeah, like you said, he was pretty productive in college despite that weird offense he was on. Okay, anybody else in the wide receiver position in Dallas, or should we head over to the abomination that is the wide receiver position for the Giants tonight?
Maybe KaVontae Turpin. He's mostly a kick returner, but maybe he plays some extra snaps at wide receiver to fill the void. I have concerns with that because he hasn't really done it, but people always want to talk about that double dip. You get your kick return touchdown for your defense. You get your kick return touchdown for KaVontae Turpin.
Okay, I kind of like that tonight.
I might rather play Turpin than Jalen Tolbert, dude.
Yeah. It's not like we get any certainty whatsoever. And like, we're trying to drum up certainty for Noah Brown. Okay, like maybe KaVontae Turpin in a little Dallas defense stack isn't the worst thing I've ever heard. Let's talk about these Giants. You mentioned it. Kenny Golladay, David Sills, Richie James is popping in our tools as a positive leverage play. Are any of these players priorities for you, or you're just trying to mix and match, get value where you need to after your priority plays are already set?
Probably not priorities per se, but I think they're good plays. And it kind of just depends on where you're going with this mid-range. If you're like using Daniel Jones and captain, you're probably breaking a tie with Richie James versus Noah Brown, or, like a situation similar to that. So I've got quite a bit of Richie James, quite a bit of David Sills, was the funniest story of all. Do you know David Sills' background?
No.
This was a story in like 2010. He was a middle schooler and Lane Kiffin offered him a scholarship when he was in like 7th grade as a quarterback. Didn't pan out. Eventually goes to West Virginia, plays pretty well as a receiver, and he's finally made his way to the NFL after getting offered a scholarship as a middle schooler. I believe he might be the youngest person in history of college football to be offered. And now he's playing for the Giants. But anyway, he's going to be their wide receiver 3 tonight. So I like playing him, but he's really close in price to Richie James. So if I'm breaking a tie, it's James just straight up. But I would think about your field size here, expecting David Sills to be far less owned than James. So if you're playing like the Millie and you just need to decide 1-for-1 between them, I would break that tie based on how big your tournament is.
That's wild. For some reason, I thought it was some brother got like a scholarship offer in 6th grade or something. Some brother of a
that might be
college.
David Sills, man. He got offered when he was in middle school. It was unbelievable. Lane Kiffin people talk about the kick that Lane Kiffin had, whoever that was on the field for. Janikowski, I think. Lane Kiffin has made a lot of funny decisions.
That is wild, man. No, it was Clausen back in the day. I thought it was. He got one real early. Anyway, let's talk more wide receivers for the New York Giants, or we actually honestly should switch over to tight end because we got to talk about defense and kickers on a slate like this, a weird slate like this. Richie James is a player that I will get to. I think that he's popping in our tools, looking at a 33% chance of being in the top 2 through 6. One line off, 28% chance, but still pretty solid at 5,400. He is a player I will get to just because he can get underneath routes. The low ADOT means the higher catch rate most likely. And again, we're grasping at straws here, but that's one way I'm seeing this tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right, let's get to the tight end position. We got names. We got Bellinger. We got backups galore. What do we do here? Who's playing tight end for the Dallas Cowboys, and should we care?
Yeah, I think we should care. I have a lot of interest in Jake Ferguson in particular. Peyton Hendershot's there as well. Those are 2 rookie Big Ten tight ends, Ferguson out of Wisconsin, Hendershot out of Indiana. They're kind of like similar in terms of their build, size, and profile. They're 2-way tight ends, decent blockers, but they can catch both of them. Ferguson's played a little more than Hendershot so far this year. So Ferguson is the guy I prefer slightly. They did bring up Sean McKeon, who he's a really weird player to look at. He's like primarily a run blocker. He played a little bit of H-back at Michigan. So think of him like a pseudo Kyle Juszczyk, but he does play a lot of inline too. So he's interesting. And even if like McKeon starts, I think they rotate tight ends and they probably use more Ferguson as a pass catcher just because, like McKeon played 120 snaps last year, only 32 routes, 6 targets. Like this guy's not a pass catcher.
They did scheme him open in the red zone a couple times though.
They do that with like offensive linemen too, though. Like seeing him get like 2 targets in the red zone, a lot of that's gadgety. I want to know, like, is he running routes in like the main formations?
You just described the type of player that constantly breaks these Monday night
That is
slates.
true. That is true. And I usually lose money when that happens. So you're absolutely right. When like Trey McKitty scores a touchdown in Showdown, that does happen more often, it seems like, than it should.
Goodness. Hey, sometimes that's a weird answer. For the Giants, Bellinger in play for you at all? 4,400, horrible leverage score in our tools right now.
Yeah, I think that's partially because you can go down and play like Ferguson. If there was no cheap min price guy, I think he might be a little bit better. For big tournaments, I think you can play him. He's a rookie who might be ascending. I think the best thing we can say about him right now is maybe we haven't seen the ceiling because rookie tight ends generally aren't performing right away in their career. It's a tough position to learn, and the learning curve is pretty steep. So to your point, I don't have a lot of Bellinger because of I rely on our tools, but if you're playing the Millie Maker, I think you should be considering him in your builds.
That's a good way of putting it. He's a person on the field. If you're playing a large field tournament, he is absolutely viable. Otherwise, he doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Twisted Reality Gaming, thank you for the super chat, man. Thank you for hanging out in here. Seen you many times before. How do you like 5+? Whoa, here we go. 5+ receptions for Richie James, 6+ receptions for Shepard, as well as 6+ for Lamb, and 50 yards for Lamb, over 49.5 rush yards for Zeke, and 34.5. All right. First of all,
is that all parlayed?
This must be a parlay.
I don't like it parlayed, but I like some of them individually.
Some of them individually. Are there any that stick out to you? The
Lamb one is my favorite.
Lamb ones is what I was looking at too. 6+ for Shepard.
I know Laffy's on some Lamb props too. He talked about this morning. I can't remember the specific numbers he got, but I did like the Lamb ones.
And a perfect way to shout out oddshopper.com. Guys, all the same attention to detail we have about the DFS slates, we take to the betting streets as well. Oddshopper.com. We got the Oddshopper YouTube channel. We got the Odd Shop every Friday, breaking down every single NFL game. Twisted Reality Gaming, we have got you covered. Head over to oddshopper.com and get your answers to those very questions for you today. Okay, defense and kicker. We got 5 minutes till lock, guys. Let's group it all together. This could be an ugly game. I will have defenses. I will have kickers. Any of the 4 you're prioritizing?
Yeah, I like the kickers. Graham Gano in particular has a pretty good positive leverage score. And that's the team I'm just playing a little bit more of. So hoping that the scoring opportunities are there. I also like the Giants defense, not just from a tools perspective, but I like some of the presence they're getting back on the edge. And this defense has quietly been decent without, like 2 edge rushers that they spent. One was a very high first round pick on in Thibodeau, and the other one was a very early day 2 pick on Ojulari. So that's a huge boost for them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, getting and against a shaky at best Dallas offensive line, that's something I want to lean into, but I don't want to discredit the Cowboys at all. I will be playing some of them too. When you have edge rushers like Micah Parsons, it's hard not to. So I will be playing Dallas as well. Just a slight preference to the Giants, have a little bit more of them.
Dude, Micah Parsons is a game changer. What an
that guy's
awesome
incredible
player to watch.
Incredible.
Just completely pops off your screen. Every chance you get a chance to see him, he's highlighted on the screen. Make sure you're paying attention to Micah Parsons. And yeah, you said it. I'm excited to see this revamped defensive line for the New York Giants with Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeaux. Happy for Kayvon Thibodeaux, because when I saw that injury in the preseason, I thought he was donezo this season. Very excited to see him on the field. They have high hopes for him. And we know that NFC East games can be, as my friends like to call, sludge fests, where they just get stuck in the mud, running the ball. And defenses and kickers could find their way into the optimal very easy that way. Do you have a preference for one of the kicker? I guess you just go with the favorite when the salary isn't that different. Are you getting to one particularly more than the other?
Yeah, it's a little bit of Graham Gano over Maher, but that's just the tools. It's nothing really against Maher. I think he's fine.
He is a kicker on the slate. That's pretty much the slate, guys. This is a weird one, a wild one. 2 teams with fairly high hopes. One, obviously, in the Cowboys, just struggling to stay above water without Dak Prescott. Could we see the New York Giants emerge 3-0, despite some of the advanced metrics saying they might be one of the worst 2-0 teams in the history of modern football? We'll see tonight. Matt, any final words for the people? Any reminders about the slate or anything you want to say before we get out of here? We're at 8:14 Eastern time right now.
Not too much slate-wise, no late swap to worry about, but enjoy the game, guys. Watch some Micah Parsons highlights from college at halftime if you get the chance. My favorite is the Memphis game in the bowl. Holy smokes. That might be the best individual defensive performance I've seen from anyone in a college football uniform. Micah Parsons versus Memphis. But otherwise, thank you guys for being here. Appreciate you so much. Allows Matt and I to do what we love. So just thank you overall.
Oh, I'm going to have to watch that. And someone's asking, Social Laura, tuna and eggs for Super Matty G. You know, we got tuna.
I already ate eggs today. I am going to have tuna immediately when we get off air. That is not a joke. I'm going to do that.
Yes, that's awesome. Oh, thank you so much for hanging out. Make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button if you haven't on the way out. It helps us immensely with the YouTube overlords. Check out that primetime code to get access to all of our single game entries. We got a ton for you coming up tomorrow as well. Make sure to follow that man, Matt_Gajeski. You can follow me as well. I'm Matt Savoca at Draftaholic on the Twitter sphere, and I'm often on the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel as well. That's it. It's 8:15. We are at lock. We are officially finishing up the Week 3 slate with Dallas and the New York Giants. Let's win some huge money, guys. For Matt and the rest of the Stokastic DFS crew, I'm Matt Savoca. We'll see you guys later.